All right, so let's go over how to use our calculator in Chapter 8 to help us out. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to y equals and clear out everything. And before I get started, let's talk about what does it mean to find the answer to a quadratic equation. Well, there's different names. There's answers, zeros, roots, and the last one I want to talk about is intercepts. That's the one we're going to use. So I'm going to use this definition of what an answer is to kind of help me out here. Now, an intercept, we're looking for the x-intercept, so that is where y is 0. So we're looking for where our graph crosses the y-axis. So we're going to come up here, we're going to type it in. Let's go to Chapter 8, Step 1, and problem A. So this is 2x squared plus 3x minus 5. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit graph, and I notice my graph goes through the x-axis twice. Once here and once here. This one looks to be about -1, and this one is between -2 and -3. So let's go up to table, see if we get lucky here. So I'm going to go to where x was 1, because that's what I thought it was. Notice at 1, I was right because y was 0. So one of my answers is x equals 1. And if you looked at the notes, you would see that those two things correspond to the answers we got. So now let's talk about the other one. Okay, I said it was between -2 and -3. Notice here between -2 and -3, something happens in the y column. In the y column, notice I go from a positive number to a negative number, implying that my graph has to go through 0 in the y column in between these two numbers. But how do I get it? Because I don't know exactly where it is, and this is a game of being exact. So I'm going to go to calc, and I'm going to use this other thing, and now we're going to use another definition, 0. So I want to find the zeros of this equation. So I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to ask me left bound. What does left bound mean? Well, it just means a point to the left of where I think the answer is. So I think the answer is right around here. So I'm going to leave that open, and I'm going to go right here. I'm going to hit enter. And now it asks me for a right bound. So I'm going to go to the point to the right of where I think the answer is. And now it asks me to guess. So I'm going to pick that point that I thought it was right there. So I'm going to hit enter, and notice it tells me my 0 is x equals -2.5. If you look at my notes, you would see that I got -5/2, which is -2.5. Now, they're not all going to look like this. Sometimes you're going to get them that look like C. So let's type in C. This one is something special happens. It's called a double root. What does a double root mean? Well, it means instead of my graph crossing twice, it's only going to touch it once. And this is what it looks like. It comes down, kisses the graph, and goes back up. That looks like it touches right around -1, so let's check. So if I come here to -1, notice I have an intercept. So this, in fact, is a double root. And if you looked at my notes, I got x equals -1 twice. But the third option is even weirder. What do I do with a problem like D that says x plus 7 squared plus 2? Now, when I graph this, notice I don't have any intercepts. I can't use any of the tricks. The table will never go through 0. Okay, I can't do it. It's not going through. And if I can't use the calc because there's nothing to calculate. This one has imaginary roots, and at least I know that from the get-go. So I'm not looking for real answers. I'm looking for imaginary or non-real. All right, so this one you would have to do by hand, but if you get lucky and get a couple of these problems on your SATs, you can find the answers pretty quick, or at least eliminate some answers just by looking at the graph. So that's how to do problems from Chapter 1. Now you can do any of the ones from the examples or the checkpoints or the square roots. All right, you can go through and do those on your own, but I'm here to show you that you can use this for each section. Now, how can I use it in section 2 when it says complete the square? Well, remember, on a lot of the tests, it's just going to ask you for the answer. Especially on the SATs, or keystones or anything like that, any type of college entrance exam, they're not really necessarily looking for your work. They're looking to see if you can get the answer. So I'm here to try and help you guys. Yes, I'm going to teach you and I want you to be able to do this, but I also want you to be able to use your resources to be able to get the answer. So let's type in example 1a. This says x squared minus 20x. Okay? And this is, again, is from section 8.2, completing the square. So I'm going to hit graph. Notice that I get this weird thing, okay? I don't even know what's happening here, but I know it's a parabola. Okay, I can show you what's happening. I'll do that real quick. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. It's just my graph is, too big and my coordinate plane is too small. So you can kind of see the U starting to form here, but let's go back to standard so we're all looking at the same thing. So I just have this weird dotted line. So let's go to the table, okay? Now we're looking for sign changes in my y column. We want to see it go from a positive number to a negative number or negative positive. Notice I got one here. It goes from 21 to negative 19. And notice mainly y is 0. Notice x is 0. So that's one of my answers. X equals 0 is an answer. Okay. Now let's go up and see what's happening up here. Okay, notice my numbers are getting bigger. All right, they're not really getting smaller. They're getting further apart. Notice this is like 43 apart. This is like 45 apart. So I'm going the wrong direction. I want the numbers to get closer together. Okay, notice the numbers are getting closer together here. Okay, notice now they're getting further apart again. Let's give it a little bit. Oh, notice I went from here to negative 100. And now I'm going back down or back up in this case. Okay, so I kind of hit a bottom or a top. I don't know which one. Okay, now notice here, numbers are getting further apart. Okay, this is a good sign. Ah, there it is. Y is 0 at 20. So my two answers were x equals 0 and x equals 20. And if you looked at the notes, that's what we got. So you can use this a whole bunch. And it's just a nice, quick way just to be able to work with your calculator and get some answers nice and quick. Now, you can also use this in 8.3, okay? But 8.3 is a very powerful thing. I typically use that over this. I can get all my answers from 8.3 and not just the real ones. So that's how to use your calculator to help you out. All right, enjoy. Reach out if you have any questions.